Hello, and welcome to Women Crush Wednesday, where we talk to women who are changing the face of politics and power. From political candidates to policymakers, activists, and advocates, we talk to people about how they can engage, empower, and mobilize. The women you see are connected through the progressive political community and are passionate about supporting women, especially women of color, in their political journey. So make sure you know about our next Women Crush Wednesday by following us on Instagram at WCW Politics and Power. I'm Marie Pavlich. I am a brand strategist at large, a director of strategy at Perspectives. I'm an activist in progress and on the board of Woodcraft Rangers, which is an after-school nonprofit that has been serving the LA community for 100 years now. And joining me is, I believe, Ebony Murphy-Root will be joining me next. There she is. Hello, Ebony.
Happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday. Ebony is a middle school humanities teacher, an active part of the progressive political community in Long Beach and LA. She's a champion of feminist causes and a board member for NARAL Pro-Choice and Arts Alive LA. And next, joining us is Cyndi Otteson. Hi, Cyndi. Cyndi is a leadership coach, a mother, a former political candidate for LA City Council, a nonprofit leader, and an award-winning marketer who coaches progressive candidates running for office.
Hi.
Hello, welcome. Backstage, we have Sarah Izzo. She is a producer and stage manager who is involved in progressive political campaigns and organizing in her adopted home of Long Beach.
Hi, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for keeping us running smoothly, Sarah. And finally, the guest of honor, the person we're so excited to talk to, is Eunisses Hernandez. She is a lifelong Highland Park resident, a policy advocate, and community organizer. And as co-founder of La Defensa, an organization that is leading the movement to decarcerate the largest jail population in the United States, the LA County jail system, Eunisses has led major policy wins such as Measure J, Way to Go, and Care First, Jails Last, which have begun to drive hundreds of millions of dollars into expanding and creating access to community-based services, housing, and support for young people in LA County. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Yes, thank you so much for having me tonight.
Great. And I just want to, before we jump in, just call out some of the great things that have happened for Eunisses as she's begun the campaign. She has received endorsements from the LA Times, California Working Family Party, LA Forward, DSA, Our Revolution, Feel the Burn, Ground Game, Heart of LA, Democratic Club, and more. And I love this quote from the LA Times endorsement that Hernandez has been a leader in one of the most significant criminal justice system reforms in the country. First persuading county leaders to scrap plans to build new jails and instead invest in community-based mental health treatment and rehabilitation services, and then persuading voters to pass Measure J, which directed the county to budget at least 10% of its locally generated revenue for youth programs, affordable housing, restorative justice, job training, and similar programs. It's just so amazing. We're so excited to have you here. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you for the opportunity. It's really amazing to be in a space with a group of femmes, like leading your own space, creating this space. I feel really honored to be with y'all. Thank you.
Thank you, Eunisses. Hello, doggos. Before I knew you, I knew your work as a person that phone banked for Measure J. And so I'm so grateful that you are going to be our next council member in CD1. And as a lifelong resident of Highland Park and a person that is running on a platform of leave nobody behind, which is so crystal clear, can you tell us and talk about some of the biggest issues that are facing our community?
Yes, thank you for that. And yes, I have 4 dogs, so you're going to hear them. They're very big. They're boxers. But the biggest issues in our district and in the city, I think, it's thematic. Folks are struggling with rent. Over 60% of the district are renters, yet there are no real protections to keep for supporting tenants or even small landlords. 75% of the landlords in this city are corporate landlords who are not even in this state. And so our campaign, a big pillar of it is to support renters, to keep people housed, to make sure we have the necessary subsidies to make that happen, because it's harder to house someone once they've lost their housing. It's much easier to keep someone housed while they're still in their living quarters. And so doing that, the second piece is our district is really impacted by environmental racism. We have over 700 oil wells in this district. Most of them remain uncapped. And they're putting development on these oil wells that are not capped, causing rivers of oil to happen and spill in the middle of the city of LA in 2021. This is happening in our backyards. And so doing the work of closing these down, capping them, and making sure that the space is remediated, creating jobs to do that so that people can be safe in the spaces that they're living. And another piece is, they're trying to put development on top of Avenue 34, which has hundreds of barrels of chemicals that have been seeping into the soil for decades. And they want to put units on there, units that our communities are going to live in. And so making sure that we do the work of cleaning up the land, not building on toxic soil, making public transportation free and accessible so we don't have to be relying on cars, and actually doing the work to implement bike lanes. Because the incumbent has literally been a barrier to implementing bike lanes, even when there have been plans and money on the table to make them work.
Yeah.
And, people talk about gentrification as like bike lanes being a symbol of gentrification. But, you go into the inner city schools here, the bike racks are filled. Yet there are no bike lanes near there. So protecting renters, environmental justice are some of the biggest impacts in our community, and also the lack of city services. Our streets are dirty. It's not because our communities are more dirty. It's because there's no city services. And I say that because I've been posting videos of comparing the Highland Park to Westlake and saying the only reason why there's a difference in the amount of trash is because there's not the city services. Because on Figueroa, it's swept every day. The trash is taken out every day. Why not in a similar business corridor like the Salvadorian corridor or, across the street from MacArthur Park? So there's a lot of we can be investing in. There's not equity there. And that's what we really want to fight for, not leaving any community behind.
And the incumbent has been in this seat for what has it been 9 years, I think?
9 years.
And he has a strategy, which is to wait until people trip on sidewalks and sue the city in order to actually get services. And so I love your approach, which is really starting in the community and looking at where are the inequities.
And doing that political education for folks. Like, you don't have to be struggling like this. That's a political decision. That's your powers to be able to vote him out. 9 years. Are you happy with that?
You stated so clearly. I love it. It's just like the rhetorical questions just come and it makes perfect sense. I want to ask you a little bit about housing. Where are we with housing? What does gentrification actually mean? And how does it intersect with criminalization? You mentioned that the incumbent just waits until people trip on the sidewalks. I imagine that, if there aren't bike lanes, perhaps people are riding on the sidewalks and that allows them to come in contact with police. Can you talk about how some of these issues intersect?
Yeah, so, I think there's a big misconception around what gentrification is. A lot of people tie that to race. But when you look up gentrification in the dictionary, it actually is to build up a community to meet the needs of the middle class. That's what gentrification means, is the development of community to meet the needs of the middle class. And if that means displacing people to build market rate and luxury development, then that's what's happening. At least that's what's happening in CD1. Small businesses are getting, folks, and this goes back to the recession. That, I remember that's when a lot of folks started losing their capacity to be able to be homeowners, to be able to be small business owners. And when those spaces opened up, when people lost their homes, other folks began to buy them. Then that's when the community started shifting. And with that comes, criminalization, because higher income communities don't want to see, nobody wants to see this, right? People experiencing homelessness, but it's higher income communities that have more accessibility to government to make complaints about these things, to understand that, this shouldn't be happening and I need to call my council member to make it happen. We have way more stop signs in Highland Park since the recession. That's because higher income communities have more abilities to contact local governments. And so, when we're seeing 41 in this district of CD1, there are over 4118 zones. And 4118 is a policy that's no sleep, no lie, no sit on sidewalks. And so when you create a zone, what happens is people get swept out of that zone and people can no longer be there. We have 41 of those zones here. And that's how people are not being able to sit or lie or sleep on the streets. But yet 4118 doesn't provide housing. So essentially you're just moving people, throwing their things away. But gentrification brings those things. It brings in more enforcement of police on, business corridors. And it brings development. It brings more city services. But it shouldn't come at the cost of displacement. No, folks are not against development, because we do need to build deeply, deeply, deeply affordable housing. But it shouldn't come at the cost of displacement. And that's what's happening right now, especially in Chinatown, where its gentrification is hitting it really hard. And people in for example, Hillside Villa, their rent went from $889 to over $3,000. And this building is not a better building. It's not luxury. It's just because of the gentrification that's happening that's causing rent to increase for others. When Chinatown is one of the lowest income parts of this district. The average median income in CD1 is $32,000 a year. In Chinatown, it's closer to $20,000. Yet, a building is going up right now, the College Station, 725 units. None are affordable housing. There could have been affordable housing, but the council member decided just to let it move forward with none of it. And so when we think about affordable housing also, there's a regional housing needs index, which tells us, look, this is how much housing you need to build here, how much you need to build there. In LA City, we have a lot of market rate, a lot of luxury. We have affordable, barely any amount, but we need that deeply, deeply affordable, which is the 0 to 30 percentile range, which is folks like in Chinatown and in Skid Row and in other parts of the city.
Yeah, I think I saw a statistic today that said that rent had increased over 16% over the last year. And when you think about what that would be across the board for people who could barely afford their rent, it is debilitating. And then when you know the power that city council members have actually on what housing goes up in their district, you understand why it's so important to follow the money and why it's so important to look at who is funding your campaign. And when you look at it, and when we think about affordable, what's affordable to me may not be affordable to somebody else, right? But when we're actually looking at what is the percentage, and you talked about that index of what affordable truly is, and sometimes the things that are built in expire. So it's just for performance, that there's a certain percentage and then it goes to market rate after just only a few years. And that's what we're seeing a lot now, when those should be baked in and they shouldn't expire.
Yes, exactly. And in that article that you quoted, Cyndi, if people read that article, literally landlords are talking about just raising the rent arbitrarily. They're like, well, the rent is increasing here. I'm going to, someone let that unit, I'm going to increase it a little bit more and just see how far I can keep pushing it. They're not even raising it for when I read that article, it blew my mind, especially knowing how many people are on the brink, on the brink of losing their housing. And these people are just playing games with, we just want to make more and more and more money. We can't continue to go in that direction because just so many people are falling through the cracks and we're losing them.
And when we look and when we talk specifically about those stats and the housing index, I know that there's a graphic that we can show to see where we're placed here. So talk us through this report card of how badly California is doing.
Yeah, so if you look at this graph right here, it talks about the different categories. So very low income housing is on the left side, and you have above moderate income housing on the right side. And so you can see that in graphic D, this is where folks, where we would build in Chinatown, where it's closer to the 20,000 range, $17,000 per year average median income. And you can see we have not built hardly anything at all. Where we have focused is on the higher level income, which is, above the $70,000 range. And so that is still really high for people. I just mentioned that the average minimum income for CD1 is $32,000 a year. So the fact that we're building on the right side, which is the moderate income above that means we're leaving a lot of people behind that are currently in our district. So this graph needs to be more equitable, and we need to perhaps pause a little bit on the right and start really uplifting, this low income housing, because a lot of folks need that, a lot of them.
So, go ahead, Cyndi.
I was going to say, a lot of times we don't see the impact with the data. We see developments going up and we don't actually see the harm that it causes for people, especially in communities like Chinatown, where we've got senior populations, immigrant populations living. And it's because it's normalized or socialized in a way where we're putting developers, landlords, and industry above actual people. And then when you talked about the criminalization of people experiencing homelessness, the amount of money that is spent on shuffling people around. And then we see, just look at LA, we see just the influx and the exponential amount of people falling into homelessness and staying unhoused. And that's why. But we don't often make that line until we see data like this. And so I love how much you are educating people and really making that through line across the board. And it really does come down to racial equity.
100%. And I think that, like you're saying, Cyndi, it's so important to do that education. And I think one of the things that on the topic of housing that I'd love to hear from you about is, what kind of policies can we put in place, can be established that would reverse or help to stop this crisis of housing insecurity and inequity?
There's a couple of things that we can do off the bat. One is our team, everybody on our team is going to be trained on renter advocacy rights, and they're going to be trained the trainers. So anytime we go out in community, our staff is going to be able to train, tenants on look, these are some of your basic rights. You don't have to be forced to sell your key. You don't have to be intimidated. You don't have to, if this happens, if you're threatened with ICE or all these different things, these are the mechanisms that you can use for support, and you can contact us. Oh, you're seeing that your landlord is not cleaning up your building. Work with us so that we can make sure that these habitability standards are met. Because folks often are also pressured to leave their buildings because landlords and managers won't fix the issues that are in their apartments. Depending on whatever the issue is, they'll just let it get worse and worse, forcing people to leave. And then once a person leaves, then they can raise the rent on that unit. And so different tactics are being used that we want to educate people on, so that people know. The second piece is protecting all the affordable housing units that exist in the city of LA. There are covenants that keep units under a certain level of rent. And we have 10,000 of those units right now, and they're under these affordable housing covenants. These 10,000 units, many of them are on the brink of expiring. So we need to extend them indefinitely. We're seeing that since 2016, over 6,000 units of affordable housing covenants have expired, meaning that those 6,000 units were once affordable are now probably market rate. And depending on where they are, they might even be more than that. Not because the building is better, but because of other situations, such as new development around the area. And then the next piece is, you mentioned it earlier as well, we have so much discretion on what gets built in this district, on our own districts. The fact that 725 units are going up in College Station and none are affordable housing, that was intentional. There could have, the council member could have fought for as hard as possible for as many affordable housing units in that development, and he chose not to. What our office is going to do is fight for every single affordable housing unit that we can in every development that goes up. We're going to be proactive in finding developers that focus on building affordable housing. There are people in Pico Union who are building affordable housing for seniors with the same values that we share. And so we're not taking any money from developers. We've gotten money from real estate developers and other special interest groups, and we've refunded it because we are not accountable to them. We are accountable to the people. But we can do the proactive work of finding folks who share our values that do build housing, because we do need to build deeply, deeply affordable housing. But follow the money. It's not by accident that we have a lot of market rate development. It's not by accident that the landlords have put in over $400,000 against myself, because they're scared. They're scared of our platform of supporting renters. But we're powerful, and that's why.
Congratulations. You have made it to that place where you are getting attack ads, and that's when we know you're winning. That's when we know we're winning. And I just want to encourage everyone to go to Eunisses.com, because you have incredible platform and you really are educating people and equipping them with knowledge, which is power.
And I think it's just so amazing what you are doing with the education side of it, because you see so many people who want to educate as part of getting elected, right? But it is clear that as part of your platform, once you are in office, you are going to keep that education going. And I think that you're so uniquely set up to do that because of your background in community organizing, in the Measure J work that you did, the work that you've done with La Defensa. And I'd love to just hear you talk about how you keep that going, because it's a big investment of time going forward as well once you are elected. And I'd just love to hear like how your experience is gonna translate into that.
And this is where the team comes in, right? The only like a La Defensa, we built a phenomenal team, very intentional about everybody we brought in, so that we can continue to pass the baton, because that's what this is, you know. And when you talk about, you know, how are we going to do it at La Defensa, we did it by building a team. Here on City Council, we're going to do the same thing we're doing as a campaign team. We have over 16 people who are canvassing for us, paid canvassers that are from CD1 or have been displaced from CD1. Most of them are bilingual Spanish speakers. We have a couple of monolingual Spanish speakers. We have a special team for Chinatown, because we wanted to be very intentional on connecting with all communities. Our materials are translated in Korean, Chinese, Spanish, because again, we have these pockets of migrant communities that we wanted to get this information to. Regardless if they could vote or not, we want to get everybody this information so that they can plug in, because in New York, migrant communities can vote in local municipal elections, and reminding people like you could vote. It's just a political decision that you can't here, even though you pay taxes. But having a really strong team is what allows me to keep moving forward, and building these teams. Our team is led by queer women of color. La Defensa is queer women led, women of color, transgender, gender diverse folks. Because, you know, in these campaign spaces, they're very cisgendered white men spaces, or even just cisgendered older men. And it's difficult. So wanting to be very intentional about the teams that we create, just like our campaign team will do that in the office. But that's what allows the work to continue. That's what allows us to connect and knock on over 48,000 doors. Is the, you know, the intentionality of the team that you bring in. So I'm really proud of that.
Speaking of knocking on doors, there is an upcoming canvas on Friday, which I'm excited about, in Highland Park. And that will be with me, Levis Porter, as well as David Kim. So if y'all can get off work on Friday early in the afternoon, please meet us and go to eunisses.com to look at all of the upcoming opportunities. Before we close out, is there anything else that you may want to speak about, or if any of y'all, Ebony and Marie, have additional questions, and then I will invite people to opt in to really join this movement.
Do y'all?
Okay,
go ahead.
I have one quick question about the coalition you've built. When I got to hear you speak, it was in a lovely backyard in your district, and really what I saw is that you speak, you know, your message is the same no matter who you're speaking to, and some of the people who support you are quite affluent, others are not. How have you been able to get those folks to realize that no matter who you're talking to, everybody wants the same thing?
It's by asking folks, what are the crises? What do you want to see in the city? How do you want to see things change? We have way more in common than we have different, even with folks who are like supporting the wrong people. Like they want people to get housed. They want people to get services. They have a misconception and misunderstanding of how the system and all these things work. And that's going to require political education, patience. And I mean, that's, my abolitionist work, that's what it has trained us up for, is to do the work of the labor of showing people like, we don't have to leave people behind. We don't have to build something we want to destroy in the future. And we don't have to give more money and more power to the systems that harm us if we do this legwork and do it with love and patience. And, it took us over 10 years to stop a $3.5 billion jail contract. But, it's about persuading, about doing the legwork. And Ebony, I forgot your question, but here we are. So if you want to repeat it.
No, you answered it.
How do you get folks to realize we all want the same things? Yeah. And you totally answered it.
Okay. Thank you.
That way that you do.
Yeah, you did. And Leave Nobody Behind is so rooted. What is so inspiring about your campaign, and so many progressive campaigns right now, is running on a platform of love, is really about care. And so thank you so much for being with us tonight in your incredible busy day that we all know you've got a million things happening. And so I want to invite people who are watching to opt in to your campaign. We really need to fight for Eunisses to be our next elected in CD1. We have special interest money. We've got attack ads, and we've got an incumbent whose name is plastered all over every single trash can and place in, in the worst way, which is know my name, but don't know my work. And so I'm really excited to see what you're going to build. I ask that people donate time and money and both, and to go to your website and hit that volunteer link, because we need every single person in this fight. Is there anything that you want to share? I invite you to make that ask. It's a continuous ask all the time when you're running. So please let us know if there's anything else you want to share.
Yes, if I could just take a quick moment to let you all know that there's 20 days until June 7th. My election's not going until November. So you don't have months to begin. It's only me and the incumbent on the ballot. So whoever gets the most votes in June wins it. He's been in power for 9 years, and believe him when he shows you who he has been those last 9 years. He's not going to change his last 4. The next time we have an opportunity to move this seat is in 2026. 4 budget cycles. We're talking $11 billion every single year. Another 4 years of record evictions. He's the chair of the housing committee. He's supposed to be developing the policies that would get us out and prevent this housing crisis. But he's done the opposite. He's enabled it. He's taken money, $500,000 at least, from the people expanding and enabling gentrification and development of luxury development by kicking people out. So if you are okay with the last 9 years, that's on you. But please, if you want to see change, now is the moment to tap in. 20 days. If you can't donate, phone bank. If you can't phone bank, you want to door knock. If you want to write postcards, we're trying to send out 10,000 postcards before June 7th. If you want to do a Facebook Live, if you want to make art, there are lanes for every single person. If you want to host a meet and greet, and I have no shame anymore. So I'm asking for everything because our communities are on the line. When we win this election, we all go into City Hall. This is not about me. This is us. And this gives us an opportunity to fight and to be at the table where they're discussing what they're going to do with our tax dollars. So I'm just grateful for the opportunity for you all, for letting me join this amazing space with you. And just please, again, tap in 20 days. Let's get this.
Let's do it. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yes,
Incredible.
thank you.
Just surging with hope, and thank you. And hope is an action. So get in here and let's fight.
Yeah, let's get it. Thank you.